Hello, Ara.
Hi.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Hey, are you doing okay in LA?
Oh yeah, yeah. A new one broke out near Santa Clarita, which is like an hour from here.
Oh,
I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, it just the news is pretty bad because I thought with the weather changing it would be easier to control the fires, but that doesn't seem to be happening yet.
okay. So let's begin our discussion on architecture.
Oh,
We were just talking. Anne's book is off to the publisher, and we mentioned it last video, but I would like to invite Anne to mention it again in today's
Well,
video
if you want, I
for
can
the
tell you what
audience.
I submitted. I can read to you the 200-word preface for the book. It's pretty amazing.
Please, please. I think that will be interesting for a reader, for our
For
listeners.
Ara to hear that.
yeah.
Let me see if I should come right up. I can read it to you here. Here it is. This is kind of mind-boggling. We didn't plan this. This is what happened. Preface. The Handbook of Neuroscience and the Built Environment compiles 31 chapters by 50 authors on 4 continents who are eager to bridge the arts and sciences and provide a new lens to see the built environment worldwide. Its editors, Alexandros A. Labdas, Ann Sussman, and A. Vernon Woodworth, serve on the board of the Human Architecture and Planning Institute, a nonprofit whose mission is to improve the design of the built environment through education and research. The editors send thanks to Keely Menez, our editorial coordinator, for her formidable expertise in book layout and organization. We also thank Lydia Cassell, architecture editor at Routledge, for initially reaching out to us about this idea, and Martha Uberg, editorial assistant at Routledge, for its organization at the end. So that was basically the crazy thing that we got 50 authors to write 31 chapters. And Routledge really was big on it, not just being from the US or the UK. They wanted it international. And so we got international. And people wrote a chapter without getting paid. It was pretty amazing.
Yes, I didn't get paid.
You can get paid. So Nikos has a chapter, Cleo Valentine has a chapter, Anjan Chatterjee has a chapter. Susan McSalmon, who is New York Times bestselling author, she wrote Your Brain on Art. She wrote the introduction. Michael Mahaffey's also writing an introduction. So we have just a kind of an amazing, it's just amazing. We somehow, I don't know how it happened, got everybody together. And then Alexandra Lavdas, he's a PhD neuroscientist from UCL London, and he lives now in Italy. He was the neuroscientist who reviewed everything. So it's pretty unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me interject. Anne mentioned Dr. Anjan Chatterjee. He has huge grants from medical foundations because these results have tremendous implications for human health. This is a human health
Right.
issue. It's not the design issue of star architects creating fashionable forms. This is a human health issue, and Anjan Chatterjee is one of the big guys, big names in this field, and it's fantastic that he wrote a chapter for this book. Anne, can you tell Ara when the ebook will be out? Because the ebook will be out before the printed version.
No, the ebook and the hardcover actually come out the same time, apparently, but we should know more next week.
Okay.
So but this really, I think this really is game changing because it introduces new terms to talk about architecture, and it introduces the idea that the unconscious experience directs architecture, which is something when I went to architecture school, it was never mentioned, and it introduces the importance of emotions. So it's really good. So that we should know next week, but it takes about 6 months for Routledge to put everything together. So I believe the hardcover and ebook come out in June. And the idea is for the first time in 16 years, the AIA National Convention will be in Boston. And we have a booth on the convention floor. And so the idea is we could then promote Nikos's chapter. We could print out from the ebook. The ebook is in full color. The hardcover and the paperback are in black and white only. But the idea is we did want a lot of pictures. We have at least 100 pictures in the handbook, and we can promote them. We could hand them out even. We could print out anyway. But it's
And
pretty
your last book also was multiple authors, or your last book was just you?
My last book was Cognitive Architecture Second
Yeah, that
Edition,
one.
which is me and Justin.
Okay.
And
Justin Hollander, who's a professor of urban planning.
at Tufts, yeah. So the urban planning professors, it's really interesting. They're more into this in a way than the architecture professors. They know how to embrace it more. They seem to be more comfortable talking about public experience than architects. They don't quite know how to do it.
I want to mention something, controversial, but with ARA, we talk about very controversial things. Up until now, there have been articles by architects on neuroscience applied to architecture, but put together, they're very confusing because when architects write about this, they're confused. They're not scientists. They don't know the science behind it. And, they make some good statements and some crazy statements. So up until now, the topic is very confusing. And Anne's edited book will clarify it because she has brought in real scientists.
Yeah, and the people doing it,
Precisely.
who are doing the cutting edge research, like Cleo Valentine, who's now at the Chan School of Public Health at Harvard, and Anjan Chatterjee, and yeah, and Michael Mahaffey's writing an introduction, Susan McSalmon's writing an introduction, just talking about how it's just a game-changing time, and we have all these new words. It's a new lens to see our reality. And it just changes everything. And in a way, I think because architecture firms are making so much money the way they were making, in the 1990s, whatever, they just don't even want to look at it yet. It's kind of like a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs moment where, digital and IBM didn't think people would have phones like this. They thought computers were just mainframes for big companies. They were so busy making money for the big industrial world that they didn't see that the public could also be carrying a computer in their pocket. But two college dropouts did, and changed the world. And it's the same kind of pivot, I think, that traditional architects are just copy clipping. They're not even visiting the site. They're just copy clipping their files, putting up the, building.
Wait a minute. Let me clarify that language. By traditional architects, Anne does not mean traditional type of architecture, human scale. He
Modern
means
architects.
the standard way of designing today, what your
The standard
colleagues
way
do,
is just
Ara.
copy clipping the
Yeah,
thing, plunking
yeah,
it in and making a lot of money and not even
exactly,
caring what the
exactly.
neighborhood feels like or if you're creating a walkable street. They're just too busy and the need for housing is so great in this country now and even worldwide. There's such a housing shortage and then you see about LA, I think I read how many thousands of houses have been destroyed? 20,000, 15,000?
Yeah. And they're probably going to be rebuilt roughly the same way. Well, I have a question. If we follow the neuroscience, the latest research on how to create an environment that's suitable for human health, are we still going to have the high rise as a model in this?
No,
No, no
no.
high rise. Max is going to be like 5 stories.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
and, and
what it does is it puts you in a stress state. It puts you in a stress state if you have to keep looking up. The natural way of walking is how we walked in the savannah with the head at 10 to 15 degrees looking down. And if you walk in Venice, you can do that. If you walk on Newbury Street in Boston, you can walk that way very easily. That's the natural way, and you're more relaxed. I think if you suddenly have to look up or that it puts you in a state of arousal immediately. So, and I don't think it's viable. No, what we're building isn't viable now. But
now 2 points to add to this. Or one of the original patents of Christopher Alexander from the patent language is 4-story limit. And he gives reasons for that. And everyone said, this is ridiculous. Who's going to stick to the 4-story limit? But now it turns out the neuroscience is proving him right. That's the first point. The second point is that certain cities in the world have a very high density, so they have high rises. So how do these, oh, look, here's Enki. Hello, Enki. So how are these results going to affect high rises? Well, the high rises will stay because of the density, but the bottom 3 stories of the high rises are going to be reconfigured so that you have a viable human scale environment on the ground, which now it's not, because high rises, not only are they high packing density, but they create an inhuman ground floor living environment, which just destroys the pedestrian scale of the city.
You know
So
what would be fascinating to study, guys? I find this fascinating is the island of Nantucket. Have you all been there?
I have not.
The island of Nantucket has the most highest real estate valuation per capita in Massachusetts now. I think an average house there sells for $4 million.
Oh, wow.
Not unusual for a house to sell for 30 million as well. And the island put on a huge historic bylaw over the entire island, banning all modern architecture, I believe in 1972.
Whoa.
And so everything is cobblestone streets, brick crosswalks. The cars have to go slowly, and people walk down the street holding hands and just chilling, hanging out on the benches because it feels so human. But now what's happened is it's like all owned by Washington, by New York venture capitalists, and they can't find working class people to run the restaurants. So people come from Egypt and South America
Oh,
because they can't find. I mean, it's just crazy. But it'd be fascinating just to we could do just a quick study of what it's like in Nantucket. It just feels so comfortable walking there. No high rises, traditional architecture. It's just, and then what's so funny is how the wealthy, what's happened in my lifetime is the wealthy have bought beauty. And then the middle class, which used to have access to beauty, my parents used to be able to afford to go to Nantucket. Now it's like, I mean, a minimum on a hotel is like 1,000 a night.
good grief.
Yeah. In the summer, it's 1,000 a night. Maybe it's 400 a night in the winter. It's just amazing. So how beauty, what's be a fascinating thing to study or to do a documentary about is how beauty has been just for the wealthy, where it used to be for all.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be really interesting.
It seems like so much research has gone into the opposite end of this. Like so many architects and engineers and general contractors have worked on curtain walls and just making a perfect facade that's just all glass that has really no
Right.
concrete,
And
no
that
any other
and
kind of.
and that is fascinating. I'd love to get an NIH grant for that. You can't fixate on glass. Your brain doesn't know where to go. So
Yeah,
when you're walking by an old brick building, your brain knows exactly where to look. Whereas the glass building, your brain's very confused because they don't know where to fixate on glass. You don't
and
know
people
what
have
to.
done so much work to figure out how to make the whole thing glass. Just have a structure that's concealed and not have any concrete or anything else, and just have just a blank glass facade. Man, it's crazy.
Yeah,
And so
okay,
many
Ara.
documents, construction documents have been made. Like people have spent like the last couple decades figuring out this technology, but it's like it's not relevant to the human. Like it's just so alien to us.
It's so alien,
Okay,
and it's not even in Germany. It's now illegal. It's been illegal for a while to make a residential or commercial building without operable windows.
That's
And what I'm
awesome.
seeing going up in Boston is there no operable windows or barely operable windows because they think they can control the HVAC better. But
Yeah,
that's just doesn't work. If someone sneezes or has COVID, you want to be able to open the window.
absolutely.
It just doesn't work. So
I want to make something more out of this. Now, Ara, why have so many people in architecture and paid engineers put in so much effort to create the perfectly smooth curtain wall? It is a religious symbol. It is not help human life, but it became a fixation of design and construction and engineering. And people did not question, why am I putting time and effort into this? No, no, it's a goal. What is the goal? It is inhuman. So why put in on this time? So they did an excellent job towards a goal that is inhuman.
and it's
Nobody
completely
questioned.
inhuman, and it's based on the fallacy, the tabula rasa fallacy. The mind's a blank slate. The mind's not a blank slate. And it's also based on the fact we're killing the birds at a
Oh,
Yes,
huge.
yes, yes,
And so now you see some buildings putting up like images of birds on the window, or they're doing things because too many birds are crashing into the window and dying.
right. But
It's
I want to ask Ara, what happens to the brain of an architect who is convinced to pursue this image, this ideal, and devote his or her years of working towards a goal, a technical goal, which has no meaning. And these people are convinced that they're doing something useful, but they're not doing anything useful.
I think since the international style has become so established, it's like architects are seeing a way to extend that research further. So it's
No,
like this whole
it's about
thing.
money too. This is seen as the way to be modern and make money and you want to be modern, you want to run for the past. Well, the past was horrible in World War I and World War II. You see why people, and then the Spanish flu. I mean, I get it, and you don't want to look at it, but the fact is it's not going to work. It's a false paradigm.
Yeah.
And they don't want to even look at it. They don't want to look at it because it's too confusing because the people in charge of architecture firms were all miseducated and their identity is wrapped up. They start questioning their identity. You know,
Exactly.
yeah, it threatens their identity the way it doesn't for people your age. That's what I noticed the difference are. Both men and women architects aren't threatened by it the way people 50 and over or 60 and older are very threatened by it. You're not threatened at all. You're curious.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And other young people are very curious.
You're very
But
curious. And I
but
also
but
think your generation, Ara, is very accepting about, emotions. You talk about stress. You talk about transgender, words that didn't even exist when I was growing up and it was all about not looking at emotions. My dad would say to me, even if you have a wooden leg, you have to learn to dance. You just don't look. He would say that, what are you telling me? Right. But now they know that emotional trauma gets carried in you, that it can hurt you. You need to acknowledge it. I mean, and then people talk about going to therapy now in a way that people would never admit it, before, it's just a different thing. It's a totally different. So,
well,
but
yeah,
yeah,
I'm raising the dangerous idea of why the past generation of architects just swallowed these goals, these inhuman goals, without questioning what direction
but it
they're
was,
going
but,
to.
but it's not just them. I think that's false. I think it was a rush to be modern. I mean, cars never had seatbelts, and we had to have leaded gas. And oh my God, we took the wheat germ out of bread. We all did these things, you know, and we didn't realize it was a rush to be modern and plastics. My dad's first job after graduating Columbia with a PhD in chemical engineering was making plastics. And now I go to the beach in Massachusetts. It's horrifying. Every beach, you pick up plastics. Plastics are everywhere, and there are
It's the
islands
same
of them.
all over the world. And in the Sargasso Sea, there are thousands of tons of plastics just floating in the
We're
Sargasso Sea.
making plastics, not knowing nature's a circular system. We can't be doing this. And we don't. And a lot of the plastics I saw for the first time a plastics degeneration clock. It takes 500 years for a Pampers diaper to decompose.
Oh, oh.
And so shouldn't that be on the package? This will take 500 years to decompose.
Not
And
if
then
the manufacturer has a lobbying.
the problem is as you know, some plastics don't decompose.
Yes, most plastics don't decompose.
And so the whole system is set up to kill our future and the fish and we don't want microplastics in our bloodstream, and that's what they're finding now.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Look, we're veering off topic. Back to architecture. How did the previous generation, my generation of architects, how did they adopt these inhuman goals and were convinced that they were doing something right when they were doing
because
something
they were
wrong?
running from the horrible past. They did lots of things. They told women not to breastfeed. I said to my mother, "Why didn't you breastfeed your children?" She said, "It was primitive." And then she got
Mm.
breast cancer, and then she died
Oh,
of.
oh, oh.
Now they know that they didn't know that you have to, it's all connected. They didn't, oh, now they're just starting to analyze breast milk. They know in the first 10 days, there's specific molecules in the breast milk just for encouraging the development of the baby's neurons. And
Uh-huh.
we also know that the breast milk for a boy is different than the breast milk for a girl.
Really?
If the babies are twins, the
Mm.
breast milk will favor the girl.
Oh, oh.
And the babies are twins. So, I mean, all this study they didn't know in 1960. Again, a lot of it's just the 21st century paradigm shift, understanding this. They didn't know that a woman, increases her chance of having cancer if she has a child that doesn't breastfeed. Now there's stats on that, you know. They didn't know that the breast milk is different for a boy baby and a girl baby. They didn't
Okay,
see.
yeah, no, back to architecture. Anne's edited book that we discussed at the beginning of this talk presents data showing that certain types of architecture are bad for you, certain types of architecture are good for you. This is bringing together of stuff that already exists in the last 5 years or so. Okay, but establishment architects refuse to acknowledge this data because I go to conferences, Anne goes to conferences. Either we're ignored or we're insulted. So the establishment architects refuse to acknowledge this. Why is this happening?
It's
This is
because the
really
way they're making too much
unscientific and
money.
inhuman.
They're making too much money. Why did cars not want to have non-leaded gas? Why was there a fight?
Yeah, wait.
Belts, the same thing.
I disagree with you. I can see that a successful architecture firm will want to obscure all this data because they're already making a lot of money. But I'm talking about architecture faculty at second-rate and third-rate universities that make a miserable salary. Yet they're the most fanatics. They're fanatical. They just attack these findings.
I could
Why
see
do they do it? They're not making money.
this type of issue in like 80% of the world in various fields. Like when you think about like pharmaceuticals, like the whole thing about okay, well, let's not go to what your diet is like. Let's a lot of times the thing will be like, oh, you could take this medication and it'll fix your symptoms. Whereas the question maybe should be, what is your diet like? What is your day-to-day life like? And then, oh, this guy named Alan Watts talked a lot about people have this approach to life where it's like if they want to pay attention, they strain their eyes and they put all this stress on their bodies. But he was saying that that's not how you pay attention. Like taking a more relaxed approach with your body might help you pay more attention. So it's like people just from the beginning, from the get-go, humans have a weird approach where it's like we strain our eyes and like just put our bodies in a place of stress to think we're being more productive, but we're being counterproductive. And it's like this whole approach makes its way into our careers and our professions and how we look at things.
Okay, but that does not answer my question. Why are today's architecture schools viciously fighting these results that point towards a better human environment and a better human health for the entire population of the world?
Well, I think that they don't know the science and they don't realize many of them were miseducated. The fact is, we're still a minority. The fact is, this is a fact. There is no mandatory requirement to take a biology or a psychology course to get your license or a bachelor's or master's degree in architecture. No mandatory requirement. Now, if you work for Apple, you're going to work with a PhD neuroscientist. Steve Jobs brought in neuroscientists since the 1970s. Architecture has split because of the siloization in academia. Now, the business world is not siloized. They grab the science to
Yes,
promote
yes.
consumption. But it's the siloization in academia. The fact that I'm building primate habitat and I don't take one course about primates, that's insane.
Yeah, but look, Anne, even if architecture schools allow the students to take one course in biology, they can take a course and not really learn what you are including in your book and what I write in my papers. Because, they can take a course in biology, they learn about cells, but they don't learn about
But
this.
I think our generation will change it. That we make mistakes. We've made mistakes in the past, and you have to have compassion for the previous generation. They were running from horror. And the idea of, starting from zero and building a new world with plastics and taking the wheat germ out of bread and having everybody drive without seatbelts, it was just a modern world that was so exciting. They were rushing from the past, and the past was horrific.
Yeah.
Hey, did you guys see the movie The Brutalist?
No.
No, I haven't heard of it.
What?
Look it up.
The movie The Brutalist, it got a Silver Globe Award, and The Brutalist it's amazing. It's a 3.5 hour movie about a Jewish immigrant, I think from Yugoslavia, or was it Hungary? I forget
Oh,
which
I
country.
heard about that. Yeah, I've not seen it.
It's amazing. It's 3.5 hours long. It's so long, it has an intermission. And it's all about what it was like in 1945, escaping Europe, surviving, and then the brutality of trying to build a new life in the 1950s and 60s after a war. and then having your wife not being able to come out of the country and the difficulty with immigration. And they have amazing shots of people waiting with a number trying to get into this country. It's about the brutalism of what we don't talk about of the immigrant experience. It's really amazing. And then it's also about this brutalist architect and how he's trying to, in fact, they even talk about it, how he incorporates what it was like being in a cell in Buchenwald in a new building he's building in Pennsylvania.
Good God.
It's unbelievable.
Oh.
How in a way the brutality of his experience, they talk about it, of his experience in World War II is expressed in the United States and what he builds. But there's a hopeful tone to it, as it's a hopeful recovery. But it's a very interesting movie. I can see why the main actor, he's now been nominated, I think, because they're doing all the awards in Hollywood next month or something, in March or something. It's getting a ton of attention. But yeah, it's very clever. But yeah, it goes from his life. It makes him up. He's a fictional character, combining some other European immigrants who survived World War II. And it goes from 1945 to 1980 and just what it was like. And yeah. And then also,
Will it educate the public about the inhumanity of these box high
well,
rises?
it's about architecture and not about architecture. It's also about just the human experience post World War II that we've tended to sweep under the rug, just how shocking it was. But it definitely has some things about architecture in it, but it also talks directly that he was replicating what he experienced in the camps. It says
Yeah,
it.
but was that ethical for him to replicate this horrific experience for ordinary people working in an office trying to do a job?
He tries to elevate it. But I think you'd find it interesting. But it is a little bit intense, and I can see why I think it's already been listed for 10 more awards. It already got a Silver Globe Award, I think. And now it's getting all these awards. It's not quite a Barbieheimer, but it was limited release. So it's only doesn't come out in the UK till January 24th. It came out, I think, in the United States in a select number of movie theaters only, not streaming. It came out, I think.
Okay. Let's move beyond that.
But you should definitely see it though, because it's about
Okay.
basically what we're talking about. Why did this happen?
Okay, but look. I want to bring up again the topic of a generation of people who are teaching in architecture schools who are around 50 years old. Okay, they have no memories of World War II. They were clean, they grew up, I'm talking about the United States and in Europe. They did not suffer any of these horrors, but they are fanatically against human architecture. Those people I do not pardon at all because they're doing harm and they are misleading their students. And this is, Ara ran into these people as his professors, say 10 years ago when Ara was in school, So these were 40, at the prime of.
I've been out of school for like 15, I think.
Okay, so they were 35, young.
Yeah.
Young assistant or associate professors in architecture school, but they're fanaticized. Why are they fanaticized?
I wonder if it has to do with the diet we eat, because we eat a pretty inhuman diet. I mean, most people, a lot of medical doctors will say that if you have more than 30 grams of sugar every day, you're going to have diabetes. And you're not going to have a healthy gut bacteria if you don't eat things that are fermented once in a while. And it's like people who just eat, let's say, pizza for lunch with ice cream afterwards and some candies and like you have cake. Like people have like Snickers bars and the Red Bull for dinner. Like so many people I see around me have such unhealthy diets. And I wonder if it's like an outward projection of what's happening inside of us. So I don't know which one is actually more important. The physical, I mean, they're related. They're so related. Our physical outward environment and the environment inside our bodies with the food we eat.
Well, I totally agree with you that an unhealthy diet leads to bad health, but I don't think that explains why some people are fanatically against human architecture. That's something that is shaping their mind it's a pseudo-religious conviction, and they want to impose their religious conviction on everyone else. So they bully their students to produce only inhuman architecture. This is the 99% of architecture studios in architecture schools. They're producing inhuman architecture, and their instructors are giving them all A's. And I know for a fact that students who make a project and present a model that has the humanity in it, they are failed or they're given a C.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's because the examples we look at are Stephen Hall and Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid and Tom Main. It's like there's a handful of architects that and Rem Koolhaas, OMA, Björk Ingels. Like these are the architects we look at when we design our projects. Like those are our case studies.
Well,
So the
those are
projects we
the
design,
worst example of case studies. Why does the architecture establishment choose the worst examples to copy?
yeah, that's the question. Like I had heard of Leon Krier, but I had never seen any of Leon Krier's projects. I had until recently. Like back
Well,
then I was,
forget Leon Korea. There are 100 other
yeah, and the
traditional
others.
architects
Yeah,
working in many different languages, many different styles. Nobody in architecture school ever presents, ever even shows photographs of these styles. They're totally dismissed. And if a
right.
student comes and says, "Look, this is a nice looking building," oh no, that's traditional. That's crap. Don't even look at this again.
No, well,
Exactly.
it's false. Yep. No, it's a paradigm shift. Look, paradigm shifts happen all the time in human history. Doctors up and through World War I were prescribing mercury to patients. I mean, really, you can't take mercury now. And they'd use mercury paste if you got a wound and put mercury on your wound. I mean, it's just they're huge shifts and they're
Uh,
happening all the time. And this is a paradigm shift and we've got to lead it. And
Well, talking of paradigm shifts, I think I'm catching the wave on this one, applying AI to create a paradigm shift in architectural design. And I'm writing as fast as I can and publishing papers on using AI to distinguish human architecture from inhuman architecture. And
yeah, I think that's fascinating how AI is ahead of people, but AI shows us who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and I'm
definitely a
not
tool.
publishing in architecture journals. I'm publishing in technical journals, computer science journals.
Yep. Yep.
And there are huge readerships. My papers on this topic, getting 1,000 readers.
Yep. No, it's a crazy time. We're in game-changing time, but we can do it. Let's stay human. Let's bring the world together.
Okay, is that it for today? Well, let's
Yeah, I
end
think
on a
I'm
positive
done.
note.
So, all right, are you okay? Are things okay? Is the fire near you?
Things are great. No, it's not near me at all. No.
It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, so is next week February? Oh no, it's not yet. So the first Thursday of February, Nir Boras is gonna join us. I think he said that
Good.
he was free.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank
Okay,
you guys
so
so much.
we'll end it today. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye.